Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right, so shout out to everyone who is in the building. It is good to see each and every one of you all. If you guys can hear me, please give me a thumbs up or a radiation emoji in the chat. If you guys cannot hear me, give me a thumbs down or an angry face, and I will try to fix it. I'm going to shout out to early birds who are in the building. We got DeAndre in the house. Shout out to you, bro. Good to see you here. We got Brooklyn Queen 125 in the building. Good to see you, Brooklyn Queen. We got Win Loser Rug. Shout out to Win Loser Rug. And we got Black Free Thinker. Good to see you. Shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. What's good with it, bro? So what we're going to talk about today is the surge, because we just keep getting unprecedented surges in the migrant crisis, in the border encounters, in the people being processed all over the place. The numbers just continue to go up. And my question to you guys is, if these numbers continue to go up and none of these solutions that the United States government, the Biden administration is implementing, if none of these changes or none of these actions that they're doing affect those numbers and cannot stop them from going up and can't stop the speed of them going up, then what is going to happen? That's the question. Shout out to Ty Valentine. What's good with it, bro? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about the new lawsuit that Eric Adams is facing. He's facing another one. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's the New York City Teachers Union who is now suing Mayor Eric Adams over cuts to the public schools in New York City in regards to him trying to create that, I believe, 15% budget decrease for the migrants. So let's check this out.
Governor Eric Adams' proposed budget cuts have hit almost every city agency, including the school system. And now teachers are fighting back. Briella Tomasetti, she is live on the Upper East Side with the latest. Good morning, Briella.
Yeah, Tashani, good morning to you. They are fighting back, as in they filed a lawsuit against the city. That complaint asks a judge to reinstate the education budget to the same level as last year, which is $14.5 billion. It also criticizes the mayor's handling of the migrant crisis, which Adams says will cost nearly $12 billion by mid-2025. The United Federation of Teachers, though, is calling that number a, quote, unverified estimate. In a new showdown between the United Federation of Teachers and Mayor Adams, the union is suing the city to halt massive budget cuts to public schools. The 35-page lawsuit was filed yesterday in Manhattan State Supreme Court. It reads in part, the approximate $547 million in immediate budget cuts to the New York City School District announced on November 16, 2023, together with the further cuts proposed that may amount to close to $2 billion stripped from city schools this fiscal year and next, will have a far-reaching and devastating impact on teachers and New York City children.
The parents, the children, the teachers are the ones who are fighting for our school system and not our administration.
The lawsuit alleges that Adams violated a state law which prevents the city from cutting education spending unless overall revenues decline. According to court documents, the city collected $8 billion more in revenue last fiscal year than projected. UFT President Michael Mulgrew explains.
We have historic revenues in the city of New York. We have an historic reserves in the city of New York. And yet we continue to see numbers that there is no documentation.
Now, this is interesting, right? Because if what he's saying is true, that lawsuit might hold up. If there is a law that says that the budget of education is not able to be decreased unless there is a decrease in revenues, if there's a clause like that that is actually written into the law, they might have something and they might be able to get their education budget back. Shout out to Vega. What's good with it, Vega? Black Free Thinker said Eric Adams is going out like NBA Live. Shaking my head. He is, bro. He is. And I got a stream coming up on BLR. It'll either be on BLR 1 or 2, where we're specifically talking about Eric Adams because he's got some more stuff going on. He's gotten $500,000 in his war pot. You know what I'm saying? So he's got a lot of money, but I don't know if that money that he has is going to be enough to deal with these legal issues that he has. And shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. Lloyd Sky 9 says they should get that school budget back. I agree. When I first heard about these budget cuts and I heard that they were going to be cutting the budget and specifically doing it from the education department, I kind of shook my head. It's like, why is it that they always take from the children, the people that are supposed to be the future of the country? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. If the children are not invested in, if the future of the country is not invested in, then there's not going to be a future, which is kind of what it's looking like. You know what I'm saying?
Everything that we know that we have already spent on the asylum seekers does not ever come close to saying that the schools should have any sort of cut.
Adams argues that the city was forced to cut spending to deal with the skyrocketing cost of housing asylum seekers. So far, cuts have slashed billions of dollars from city programs, including the NYPD, the FDNY, and Department of Education. Another round is on the table for January and then April.
This unforeseeable crisis that we're facing of over 150,000 migrants and asylum seekers, $5 billion this year, $12 billion over 3 years, it hurts us.
In June, Adams and the UFT agreed on a new 5-year contract that gives teachers big raises and bonuses of up to 20%. The mayor was sure to point that out when defending his decision, referencing Mulgrew specifically.
He agrees that he had a 90-something% ratification vote from his membership.
Shout out to John Guillory. What's good with it, bro?
And so when we need the court to determine what the next steps forward are, we will have to go to court and do that.
Yeah, again, these are
shout out to Win Loser Rug, and that's a great point. Win Loser Rug says, I don't know how you justify not investing in the children. Probably why all the kids want to be TikTokers nowadays. Yeah, TikTokers and YouTubers. Because what can you do nowadays? You know what I mean? And they can see that they're not really being invested in. So it's almost that type of situation of, what are you going to do to survive? You know what I mean?
Quite far-reaching impacts. The first round of budget cuts slashed $120 million from the universal pre-K program and nearly $20 million from Summer Rising. For now, though, we're live here on the Upper East Side. Deshani, back to you.
All right, so there's that. All right, so we got another clip that is talking about these budget cuts, but this is a clip from Fox. And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have not smashed the like button, please take a moment. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Also, if you all have not shared the stream to your social media, please help us out by sharing the stream to your social media, trying to grow the channel. And it is growing, so shout out to y'all, because it wouldn't be growing if it wasn't for you guys.
New York City Teachers Union is suing Mayor Eric Adams over his budget proposal, slashing the education budget by a whopping $547 million in order to pay for migrants.
The lawsuit says this will, quote, have a far-reaching and devastating impact on teachers and New York City children. Outkick host Tommy Lahren joins me now. Okay, it's a Democrat mayor versus a very, very Democrat teachers union. Seems like this migrant crisis is really exposing some huge cracks in the Democrat foundation, right, Tommy?
Yeah, well, you've heard the expression, the snake eating its own tail, and that's exactly what we have here yet again. I never thought I'd agree with the teachers union, but I certainly do in this instance. It just goes to show that elections have consequences. And I'm not just talking about Mayor Eric Adams. I'm talking about Democrats that are put in positions of power, especially way at the top in the Biden administration with Joe Biden himself and what he's done to our southern border. If you can even call it a border at this point, I'm not sure that name fits. But the illegal immigration in this country, when it's topping millions of people, tens of thousands a week, this is simply unsustainable. And this teachers union, they have a point here. They're saying you're
up. There we go. Unsustainable. Y'all know what to do when they say unsustainable.
slashing budgets, not only for schools, by the way, but also for NYPD and other important areas. They're saying, listen, you're slashing our budgets, but we've got all of these children that we now have to educate, so we need more money. It just goes to show that while simply throwing money at the problem isn't going to solve it, there's not enough money in these big blue sanctuary cities to take care of the problem that these big blue sanctuary cities have created. So the snake eating its own tail, and unfortunately, this is just the beginning. It's going to come home to roost, and it's going to hit real hard, probably in the next several months to couple of years.
Well, Tommy, speaking of New York, there's new Census Bureau numbers, and they show a full-on blue state exodus. New York lost the most, over 100,000 residents in 2023, more than any other state. California came in second with over 75.
Look at this. This is interesting. What do you guys think about this blue state exodus 2023? I actually have a stream planned where we're going to talk about all of the people that are leaving California. But in 2023, 32,826 people left Illinois. 101,984 left New York City. 75,423 left California. Now, let me ask you guys this question. Why are all of these people leaving these areas? This is interesting. These are three areas, and we all know what's going on in these three areas, right? Why is everybody leaving? Does this have any kind of relevance on what the future election will look like? If you ask me, this is clearly in response to the Democrat policies in these areas and in response to how the migrant crisis are being dealt with. You know what I'm saying? If you guys ask me, shout out to DC Precise and shout out to One More Chance. What's good with y'all? Right. I'll treat you right. I will. Right. Not treating the citizens right though, but Eric Adams, he'll treat the migrants right though. You know what I'm saying? He treating them right, he will.
5,000 residents leaving, in Illinois is in third place with over 30,000 residents leaving. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik said this about this exodus: with record crime and cost of living far beyond the national average, New York's mass exodus is far from over. What do you think about this?
Well, I'll tell you, Todd and Carly, I see it every single day because I live in the great city, in the great state of Nashville, Tennessee. So all the New Yorkers, they're coming down south, they're coming to Tennessee, they're coming to Florida, they're coming to Texas. You don't really see it the other way, and there's a good reason for that. You know, I spend quite a bit of time in New York City to come see you all in that wonderful building, and as much as I love to see you all, I got to tell you, going to New York City is not my favorite place. It's dirty, it's dangerous, you've got an illegal immigrant crisis, so there's no wonder people are leaving. I often ask you guys, why would you pay those taxes to live in those small places when you've got illegal immigrants getting things for free? I'm telling you guys, when you're ready to move Fox News to Nashville, Tennessee, we can't wait to have you.
I just looked at my paycheck for the year, saw the New York State taxes, and I got mad because I'm paying for this. I don't mind paying for the kids. I mind paying for this. I mean, finally, Nikki Haley trailing former President Donald Trump by just 4 points. 4 points in one New Hampshire poll. Does Haley have a legit shot at beating Trump in New Hampshire? And if so, what happens next, Tommy?
I don't think so. And again, these polls are a snapshot in time. And so I'm not saying that we can completely dismiss poll numbers, but other polls say that Trump is up.
Hey, I was thinking the same thing, man. I didn't even recognize Tommy Lauren. What do y'all think? Y'all agree with Lloyd Sky 9? If y'all agree with Lloyd Sky 9, give me a thumbs up. Tommy Lauren is aging fast. Yo, bro, she's aging in dog years, bro. Like, she's not one of those people that's getting better with age. You know what I'm saying? At all.
50 points. They say that Nikki Haley is up in New Hampshire. It is still very early. I think what you're seeing is some people getting a little bit nervous about Donald Trump, the mounting legal issues, being kicked off the ballot in Colorado, even though it's not probably going to stand. I think there are some people that are getting nervous, and Nikki Haley's been able to fill that void. But Trump really hasn't started going after Nikki Haley like he's gone after Ron DeSantis for the last 6 months to a year. So when he starts turning his targets on her, I think you can expect the same thing to happen to her that's happened to Ron DeSantis. It's the Trump effect, and unfortunately, Nikki is probably about to feel it here in the next couple of months.
Oof, not a place you want to be, but she's in the race for a reason. She's a tough lady. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us. Merry Christmas.
All right, so there's that. All right. So now Fox actually did a White House, I guess, like press conference where they went and were asking questions about the migrant crisis. So what we're going to do is we're going to check out this video. It's called Fox Presses White House on Record-Breaking Migrant Surge. And we're going to see what the White House had to say about it. Now, we know what the White House probably is going to say about it. Nothing coherent, right? But let's see what they said.
We are absolutely at a breaking point, beyond a breaking point. And the finger pointing is over. I mean, it's always somebody else's fault. The first step to getting out of a hole is stop digging.
The border crisis exploding. Migrants flooding into the U.S. at a staggering rate, draining resources and morale. Instead of spending the holidays at home with their families, Border Patrol agents will face scenes like this, processing those entering the country illegally with no slowdown in sight. Good morning and welcome to America's Newsroom. I'm Brett Baer. Bill and Dana have some much needed time off. Morning, Jillian.
Good to be with you, Brett. I'm Jillian Turner in Washington. Well, U.S. Border Patrol now is vastly outnumbered with about 200 would-be illegal migrants to each single agent on the ground there. Southern border governors say it is not at all clear.
So there's a 200 migrant to 1 agent ratio. Now, my question is, how do they expect to continue operations with those numbers? Like, I kind of think that, you know, unless you've been following this situation, which all of you all have, so shout out to you all, but to people that are not really concerned with this, people really do not understand the stress and strain that this migrant crisis is placing on the resources here in the United States. Look at the cleanup job at the southern border. Look at this. This is ridiculous.
President Biden has actually seen what is happening on his watch. Take a listen.
Has President Biden seen photos and videos from the past week of the sea of people crossing into this country illegally? I understand he's probably been briefed on it, but he's seen photos and videos of it actually happening.
I can't attest to what the content is of the material he gets every day, but he has been kept apprised and briefed, of course, by the domestic and national security teams on this. But what's in that content? I mean, I'm not part of those discussions.
We got Fox team coverage on this story for you. Former acting ICE director Tom Homan is standing by. First, though, we go to Bill Malugin. He's at the border in Lukeville, Arizona this morning. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Jillian, good morning to you. Some brand new numbers. CBP sources telling me that we've had about 45,000 migrant encounters at our southern border just since Monday. That mean we could essentially fill up Yankee Stadium in just 4 days.
They've had since Monday, right? There's because I haven't done a undocumented bros, and I haven't done a undocumented video just on this channel in a while. So since Monday, right, they had another 45,000 migrants come to the border. That's ridiculous. And then the question that you got to ask is, where are they going to send them all? Where are they all going to go? We know where they're all going to go. They're going to drop them off in a majority FBA neighborhood near you. What they like to call on TV a quote-unquote Democrat area near you. This is completely unsustainable. There's no way that this is going to be able to continue. So now the question is once the system breaks, once things start to happen, once certain operations are not able to continue, my question for you guys is, how is this going to be handled? If they're already expecting us to pay more money to be able to fund what's going on, and what's going on isn't effective, What are they going to do? Start charging us more tax dollars? What? How are they going to continue this?
Give you a live look at the situation here in Lukeville. It is pouring rain out here. It's been pouring rain all night, but that has not stopped the mass illegal crossings. This is the Lukeville port of entry, which has been closed down for weeks now because of what's happening out here. You can see hundreds of illegal immigrants being processed by Border Patrol here underneath the port of entry after they crossed illegally. Many of them being handed out those Mylar blankets because it's cold and it is very rainy out here. And we'll show you how nonstop it has been. Take a look at this video our team shot yesterday here in Lukeville. Some of the most stunning footage we've shot out here.
Look at this. Look at these giant lines of people. Single file lines of people. Where are these people coming from? Shout out to Brill. What's good with you, bro? Where are these people coming from? And where are they going? That's my question for you guys. At some point, they have to put a stop to this. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree that the only way to deal with this is to just put the brakes on the situation, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree and y'all think that there's some other way that's more effective to deal with this, then give me a thumbs down and let me know what y'all think. Yeah, it's good to see you too, bro. Welcome to the stream.
Single massive group of well over 700 people who crossed illegally through a breach in the border wall yesterday. And as usual, they are coming in from all over the world. We had a lot of adult men from Africa. As you mentioned, Jillian, the agent ratio out here has gotten so bad.
Y'all heard what they said, right? We've got a lot of quote unquote adult men from Africa.
As usual, they are coming in from all over the world. We had a lot of adult men from Africa. As you mentioned, Jillian, the agent ratio out here has gotten so bad, upwards of 1 agent per 200 migrants. We had a chance to talk to some guys from Ecuador who crossed illegally. They said they're here to work and they're going to sanctuary cities. Take a listen.
¿De dónde son? Ecuador. Todos de Ecuador. ¿Y por qué están aquí? ¿Quieren trabajar?
Porque tenemos ganas de trabajar. Todos queremos trabajar.
We want to work. What kind of work do they want to do? What kind of work are you interested in doing? Now, again, coming to the United States, just busting through illegally to get a job is not anything that asylum is granted for. We've already established that. We've already gone through that. You do not establish asylum just for coming to work, just for wanting to work. It's not how that works. Right. No, absolutely not. Facts. Shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. Lloyd Sky 9 is asking a great question. Work is a prerequisite for asylum. I'm going to ask you guys in the comment section. We've gone through this. Is work a prerequisite for asylum? If it is, give me a thumbs up. If it's not, give me a thumbs down. So the question then that you got to ask is, why are they allowing these people to continue this? They need to set up, what they need to do is they need to have the border, and then they need to have maybe like a mile or two of area after the border. And within that mile or two after the border, that's where they need to just put a huge barricade, and that's stopping people dead in their tracks from coming through. Because the things that they're doing to try to deter people from coming is not happening. These people know that once they get to the border, they're going to get processed and then get released into the country, which completely negates the purposes of having a border.
Peligroso Ecuador.
Tenemos inseguridad en todos los sentidos. No hay control en el país.
¿Y a dónde vas en los Estados Unidos?
Pensilvania.
Pennsylvania.
Nueva York.
New York.
Chicago.
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 Now, as far as Pennsylvania goes, I haven't got to it yet, but I have an article. And what this article says here is that there's a historic immigration wave in Allegheny County. How many people knew that there was a historic immigration wave in Allegheny County? That's like where Pittsburgh is, if I'm not mistaken.
And as you take a look at this video from Eagle Pass, the numbers have been unprecedented this week. Remember, on Monday, we had the highest single day ever recorded of migrant encounters with more than 12,600. It has been absolutely nonstop. Agents are completely overwhelmed. And the Border Patrol Union says more agents than ever are going to have to be working on this holiday, this Christmas holiday, leaving their families because of these mass illegal crossings. The Border Patrol Union telling Fox News in part, quote, "While our agents are more than willing to sacrifice the holidays to protect fellow Americans, that is not what they will be doing. They will be processing the illegal border crossers for release into the U.S., while large parts of the border will be left wide open to exploitation by organized crime." These will not be happy holidays for the hardworking men and women of the Border Patrol.
So now you guys see this right here, right? Brandon Judd on influx of illegal crossers at the southern border. While large parts of the border will be left wide open to exploitation by organized crime. That's huge. These will not be happy holidays for the hardworking men and women of the Border Patrol. Now, I got a question for you guys. If these cartels are assisting these migrants moving through the United States southern border, how many of you all think that there could be a possibility that the cartels are also operating some of the businesses here in the United States that are making tons of money off of this migrant crisis? If you guys think that that's a possibility, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. If you guys don't think that that's a possibility, give me a thumbs down. How many of these migrant shelters and how many of these food kitchens do you all think that the cartel might have some form of investment in? No one has really asked that question, but I think that that's a legit question to ask.
And back out here live, I'll step out again. That is exactly what they're doing right now. These agents are processing these migrants. There's only a few of them here for about 200 illegal immigrants. And we have seen the frustration out here in recent days, guys. We'll see these huge mass groups cross. Border Patrol will spend hours processing. They'll finally get the group done. They'll take a little breath, and then they look up, and there's a group of like 600 or 700 showing up, and you just see their heads kind of go down and the frustration build. They signed up to patrol the border. Right now, they feel they are social workers, essentially just processing for release. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Bill, stay close. We'll come back to you throughout the show this morning. Thank you. Brett?
For more on the border crisis, former acting ICE director Tom Holman. Tom, good morning. Thanks for being here. You know, these numbers that Bill is talking about are just staggering. I know you've heard them, you've dealt with them, but in December, if you look at the fiscal year 2021, 2022, 2023, look at these numbers. 235,173 in fiscal year 23 compared to those past 3 years. That is staggering. And how do you put that to words?
Well, there's two things. First, Brett, we're on a glide path right now for December. December may be the highest month ever recorded. We're on a glide path to that number right now. And we're 3 years into administration. There's two things that really concern me. Number one is that there are certain sectors on the southern border now where there isn't a single Border Patrol agent on patrol. They're all processed.
So this is what we talked about this before. And I think when we started talking about this, it was when they were talking about shutting down the Lukeville port of entry. There are certain sectors of the border that are just completely unmanned. Now, here's my question for you guys. At those unmanned sectors of the border, will it be easier or more difficult for people to just slip through undetected? Let me know what you guys think.
Where there isn't a single Border Patrol agent on patrol. They're all processing. Several sectors brought every agent into the processing facility to process, which means their national security mission has been put aside. That's going to mean more fentanyl getting across the border, more bad people, more sex trafficking women and children, those that don't want to be caught. The second thing is I talked to several agents last week in Texas. They are so busy processing, and they've been in such a push to process quickly and release quickly. They're not doing investigative interviews. They're not going through pocket trash to find out who they're paying, how they got here. They're not doing deep dives into who these people are, because many of these people will lose their passports, throw their passports away before they get to the border. So the Border Patrol's got to take their word for who they are and where they came from. And this is cause a whole new national security crisis. So because of the surge, the job isn't being done, and this country's at great risk because we don't know who these people are. We don't have time to deep dive into an investigation.
Well, to your point, the other graphic I wanted to put up is the terror watch list numbers. And just over the past 3 years, there's more than 200.
Now, I want to ask you guys this question. I didn't know about this right here, and this is interesting. Terror watch list encounters at the southern border. Fiscal year 2024, 1. Fiscal year 2023, 80. Fiscal year 2022, 67. Fiscal year 2021, 103. That's kind of scary. Now, here's my question. How do you know that people that are slipping through undetected are not individuals that are on the terror watch list, or are individuals that should be on the terror watch list, because more than likely they haven't detected and caught everybody, right? So there's probably some people who are terrorists that have gone undetected. So if they kind of have these practices where they're overstaffed at the border and there's all these places that are unmanned, these kinds of individuals could be slipping through the cracks in record numbers. We just got to assume that because the large amount of migrants having encounters at the southern border is at record numbers, that by default bumps all other numbers up to record numbers, right? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it doesn't, give me a thumbs down.
That we've seen on the terror watch list, and part of that is this screening that you're talking about.
Yeah, because each border patrol agent is trained very well how to recognize when someone's lying to them, and to look at, like I said, back when I was an agent, look at the pocket trash, look at the information in their pockets and try to make sense of it. And terrorist screening database is only as good as the data we have. For instance, there are a lot of terrorists in this world that have no record unless they've been captured in a criminal investigation or a Title III wiretap, or unless they were encountered on the battlefield by a soldier. There's no record of them. So that's why we need an investigative interview, which is not being done. So there are thousands of people entering this country that can come from countries that sponsor terror.
That's facts. Shout out to Rob from Denver. Rob from Denver says black market immigrant businesses like off-code construction, drug sales, and sex work also have legal businesses like restaurants, licensed blue collar, and all the money flows into real estate. That's facts. That's super facts. I guarantee you that if they compared and did a financial analysis of money going in and out of banks, I guarantee you that the amount of money being laundered this year is off the chain.
171 countries, and some of these countries sponsor terror. And as you said, 227 just on the southern border last fiscal year. At the same time, 432 on the northern border. Again, I've said 1,000 times, this is the biggest national security failure I've seen since 9/11.
We're talking about almost 12,000 a day now, and just in the past couple of weeks. Jay Johnson, former Homeland Security Secretary, said if he saw 1,000 coming across a day, it was a bad day. How much, Tom, quickly, would the Remain in Mexico policy that this administration kind of put aside, if it was still in place, would deal with this effectively, at least at some point?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. Jay Johnson, respect the man greatly. 1,000 a day. We all got called into this office, want to know what we're doing about it. But, I think what's happening here on the Remain in Mexico program is a game changer in the Trump administration. And look, the highest court in the land has said it's legal. If they would put the Remain in Mexico program back in tomorrow.
Yeah, that's facts. That is big facts. There's more security at TSA checkpoints than at the border. You can't sneak through the TSA and get on a plane at the airport. They put you through metal detectors. They look at your identification. They look at all your documents. You are not getting on a plane without showing a bunch of documentation, whether it's a passport, whether it's a real ID, driver's license, or state ID, all of that stuff. And on top of it, you have to be, pre-registered and pre-authorized and all that at the airport via your, respective airline, right? So as a citizen of the United States, to use facilities like the airport, you've got to provide more identification than what is being required down here at the border. Make that make sense.
This will be a game changer, this administration. People will still claim asylum. They're just going to wait in Mexico for the hearing. It worked for the Trump administration. People stopped coming. People stopped selling everything they had to pay the cartels, only to come to the country and be removed. So it was a game changer, and I've said it for a year and a half. Put it back in place. Secure the border and do your job. It makes sense, and we've proven it's effective.
Tom Homan, former acting ICE director. Tom, we really appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on.
I'm Steve Doocy.
All right, so there's that. All right, so now next, believe it or not, right, a lot of the liberal news media, like non-Fox channels, they hadn't really been talking about the migrant crisis. Believe it or not, CNN and CBS and ABC, all of these channels, they're now talking about the migrant crisis. They are now talking about it, believe it or not. So here's what CBS Mornings had to say about it.
We now go to the southern border, where officials report a big jump in the number of people crossing illegally. Thousands of immigrants are being held in this makeshift staging area in the border town of Eagle Pass, Texas. Omar Villafranca went to Eagle Pass to talk with some of them. Omar, good morning. Tell us what you're seeing.
Good morning. We're here in Eagle Pass, right by the Texas-Mexico border. And what you're seeing over my shoulder here is, in our rough estimate, at least 1,000 migrants, maybe more, behind me in this holding area before they get processed. That silver shimmer you see behind us, those are Mylar blankets to keep them warm as temperatures dip into the 40s and 50s here in South Texas. Now, most of these migrants are from Venezuela, and many we spoke to said they had spent at least one night here before being taken to those processing centers. Now, the head of the nation's Border Protection Agency tells CBS News his officers are now facing what he calls a serious challenge. According to data obtained by CBS News from DHS, the U.S. Border Patrol average.
See, as you guys can see right here, they said that most of these migrants are Venezuelan. Most of these migrants are Venezuelan, which is interesting, right? It's interesting because when it comes to Fox, they're not saying that. Fox will have you thinking that most of the migrants are African.
Nearly 7,900 migrant apprehensions a day last week. That's up from an average of 6,000 in October. Now, on Monday alone, it says it processed nearly 11,000 migrants, with increases in remote areas of Texas and Arizona. Now, on Tuesday, the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas to try to stop a new law that was signed by the governor. And many.
So now, again, this is what I want to know. Why would the ACLU file that lawsuit? Why would the ACLU file that lawsuit? What benefit is that lawsuit going to have with the migrant issue that we have here in the United States? You just got to ask yourself that question. What is ACLU's justification for doing that? Is there one? It's interesting the stuff that the ACLU decides to pick and choose when it comes to what it wants to be involved with.
You're calling that law one of the harshest anti-immigration laws in the country. Essentially, what it would do is if somebody crosses over, they would make that a state crime, possibly even a felony.
Okay, so the ACLU is saying that this is an anti-immigration law. I need you guys to explain to me how this is an anti-immigration law. Is crossing the border illegally immigration? That's my question.
The punishments would be harsher than federal law. Gail?
All right, Omar, thank you very much. We now go to the southern.
All right, so there's that. All right. So again, a lot of this stuff, when you break it down, when you ask the questions, when you analyze it, a lot of it just does not make sense. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because the mainstream media is trying to paint a narrative. So they're not looking at things objectively. They're looking at things in terms of the message that they want people to take from all of this media.
Migrants a day. That is what federal officials say they are encountering at the U.S. southern border on average in December. That's among the highest numbers ever recorded. And with multiple border entry points remaining closed as the surge at the southern border escalates, U.S. officials now warning that the situation is nearing a, quote, breaking point. Ed Lavandera is out front.
Apprehensions of migrants crossing the southern U.S. border are once again reaching record levels. A Department of Homeland Security official tells CNN the average number of encounters in the last week is 9,600 per day.
9,600 per day. So here's my question for everybody. Let's just say that this stays the same and it doesn't change. We're getting 9,600 migrants per day into the United States. How many is that in 1 year? What is 96,000 times, or I'm sorry, what is 9,600 times 365? What is that number? That's that number, right? Because we're about to be in 2025. So if this number stays static at 9,600, if we multiply this number times 365. At the end of 2024, going into 2025, how many migrants will have come into the United States?
This rate of apprehension.
Another thing that they're not doing is they're putting all of the numbers together. They're not separating the illegal people from the people who are being granted asylum and coming in legally. We need those numbers to be segregated so that we can assess the situation better. They do have those numbers and they do have them segregated, but they're putting the numbers together to confuse people.
Has not been seen since earlier this year, in the days before the lifting of the COVID-era restriction known as Title 42. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez says the situation is spiraling out of control again.
Border Patrol agents are doing everything they can to take care of the situation, but they are completely overwhelmed, completely just.
There you go. 3.6 million people per year, and that's if the numbers do not continue to raise. 3.6 million people. Shout out to Robb from Denver. Make sure you guys show him some love. Throw some radiation emoji in the chat, some flames for him. Here's my question. In 5 years of an influx of migrants of 3.6 million per year, what kind of fundamental change will that have on the U.S. population and on the culture of the United States of America? That's my question for you guys. Let me know. In 5 years, right? So let's expand this out. 3.6 million per year. So in 5 years, how many people are we talking? Let's get those numbers.
Overwhelmed with the situation, and it's getting worse.
This spot along the Rio Grande in Eagle Pass, Texas, is the focal point of the southern border migration crisis. Despite miles of razor wire, steel containers on the riverbank, and thousands of federal, state, and local authorities on the ground, thousands cross this spot every day.
It's going up and up and up.
Sheriff Tom Schmerber says a zero-tolerance immigration policy won't keep migrants from crossing the border illegally into the U.S., but he says the Biden administration needs to do more.
That, shout out to Lloyd Sky 9, 18 million people. 18 million people. Not to mention the people who are already here. When we start with this 3.6 million, those people will have had families, right? And children. So these are all very small. These are all on the low ends of the estimates, what we're talking here.
Or to get it under control.
Best thing to do is for the federal government to work with the government from Mexico. Hopefully they can persuade them to put some kind of a border system over there on their border, north border over there, well, south border, and help us stop the immigrants coming from Mexico.
President Joe Biden spoke with Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador on Thursday. The administration said both men agreed more needs to be done to stop the historic migration flow. And the Mexican president announced Friday he will meet with the U.S. Secretary of State and Secretary of Homeland Security next week in Mexico City. U.S. border authorities remain overwhelmed. Immigration processing facilities are filled, and the strain on resources is creating staggering delays and long lines at ports of entry for border residents. No one has figured out how to overcome the tidal wave of misinformation.
Now, what's going to happen when we're not able to get food and supplies, when these logistics chains fail as a result of what's going on at the border? What's going to happen when we're not able to get essential supplies and essential goods here into the United States? Because that will eventually happen. So how will that be dealt with? What do you guys think? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys watching. We got 23 people watching and we got 32 likes. If everybody can take a moment and smash that like button. And also, if you haven't hit the bell or shared the stream wherever you're watching from, please take a moment and do that.
That largely influences migrants as they make their way north to the U.S. border. Border authorities say these migrants are convinced that crossing illegally between ports of entry is routine.
There's a lot of misinformation going on the Mexican side. The migrants are believing that this is an official port or an official way to enter the U.S., which is completely wrong.
In places like Eagle Pass, the daily flow of migrants crossing the
I disagree with this. I do not believe that the migrants do not know that what they're doing is illegal. They know that what they're doing is illegal. Here's the question. They said that the cartel is giving a lot of this misinformation, right? If you're dealing with people who are part of the cartel, then you know that you're dealing with people who already have shady dealings. So you know that you're running a risk of what you're being told possibly not being true. Also, they have phones. They can verify this information. Why aren't they calling places? I'm sure that Border Patrol has a phone number. All these people have phones. Instead of doing all of this guesswork and working with these cartels, when your phone has a signal, pick up the phone and call the office. These are common sense things that could be done. We're making these assumptions that these people just can't figure anything out. So now, here's the question. If people can't figure anything out, are those really the kind of people that we need here in the United States? We already got enough Americans that can't figure anything out. We've got an overpopulation of Americans who can't figure anything out. Let alone people who legit don't know American culture or how to get around in the country, and they want to act like they don't know anything. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Rio Grande doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon.
Ed, good to have you. Are there any signs that Governor Abbott's new controversial law to arrest migrants will deter people from coming? Misinformation has always been such an influencer here.
Right. Well, that law isn't supposed to go into effect until March, and it's likely to be tied up in the courts. We asked the sheriff there in Eagle Pass what he thought about it. He did not think it's going to do anything to curtail people wanting to cross the border illegally. And the Mexican president has been extremely critical of the law and is vowing to help Mexicans and migrants, defending them in this situation. So that could also very well complicate discussions that he's scheduled to have with U.S. officials next week in Mexico City. Jim?
Yeah, facts. And shout out to Rob from Denver. Rob from Denver brings up a great point. He says Venezuela isn't a third world country. They're just under 20 years of oil sanctions, but otherwise most have a high school education. Facts. Most of these people, when it comes to this migrant crisis, many of them are coming from developed countries to the United States. They're not coming from these countries that are just in complete disarray. That's not true.
Ed Lavanera, thanks so much. Out front now, Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and former Republican Congressman Charlie Dent. Good to have you both.
Hey,
Maria, you heard Ed's report at record levels each day. You know that politically, this is hammering Democrats, including President Biden. Does he need to get a deal done in January as quickly as possible or risk, well, he could lose the election over something like this?
Well, they do definitely want to get a deal done, Jim. But what they should do is they should lean into what the vast majority of Americans agree with. And that is that in order to deal with immigration and the border, we need a balanced approach. The problem here is that Republicans are negotiating in completely bad faith. The only thing that they are offering is to shut down the border, eviscerate our asylum processes. They want to offer what passed in the House, which is H.R. 2, a completely draconian, MAGA extremist-inspired proposal that Democrats don't want, that the White House does not want, and frankly won't work.
Draconian. Now, would you guys agree? Is she just being a drama queen? Is that draconian? If you all feel that that's draconian, give me a thumbs up. If it's not draconian, give me a thumbs down. What about the draconian amount of charging of tax dollars that American citizens have to face to fund this crisis that none of us asked for? What about the draconian effects of this population influx and how it's going to fundamentally change the political landscape and block out the people who are already here, especially foundational Black Americans? What about that? It's amazing how these things are never considered. Now, the thing is, if you ask me, they are considered. They just don't care.
And so what we need, what the administration needs that they don't have, are partners on the other side that want to negotiate in good faith to really get this immigration issue under control and to fix it. As you know, Biden can't do it alone. The White House cannot do it alone. This has been Congress's responsibility forever. And they are the ones that need to come together in a bipartisan way to figure out how you expand legal pathways so that you reduce the pressures of people coming here and increase border.
Facts, T-Lo. Big facts. If you guys agree with T-Lo, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. Sensible border policy isn't draconian. That's facts. That is absolute facts.
Security. By the way, the Biden administration offered $14 billion in border security in these negotiations to increase smart border security, more resources, more border patrol, more drones, more technology, increase asylum processes or people who process them, immigration judges, and Republicans turn them down. So the hypocrisy and the ignorance on behalf of Republicans is rampant. And until they come together, come to the table with a real effort to try to get this fixed, we're not going to get where we need to be.
Well, Congressman Dan, as you know, it seems Republicans want more. You know, big picture, how hard it is to get any bipartisan deal through Congress, particularly when it involves immigration. I wonder, do Republicans want a deal now, or do they prefer an issue for the 2024 election?
Well, I think many do want a solution. It's true. There are members on both sides of the aisle have used immigration as a political issue. They don't want a solution. But I think the issue that I think Republicans have, to be perfectly fair, is this asylum system is broken. Most of these people coming across the border are economic migrants. They are not legitimate asylum cases.
See that? They're economic migrants. Now, mind you, this is being, they're saying this, and this is CNN saying it. So now, if these people are economic migrants, then you got to ask the question, why are they not being turned back?
Political issue. They don't want a solution. But I think the issue that I think Republicans have, to be perfectly fair, is this asylum system is broken. Most of these people coming across the border are economic migrants. They are not legitimate asylum cases. And I think the fear that Republicans have is once you admit people into the country, they disappear into the interior of the country, and then good luck getting people to show up to deportation hearings or asylum proceedings. That's one of the major concerns. So they have to fix this asylum system. Now, I'm not so sure they're going to be able to do this in the context of the supplemental appropriations bill.
Right.
But I think the Biden administration has been late on this issue, and I'm not for shutting down the border. I think that's a draconian step. We have to deal with this humanely. But Americans expect an orderly system.
I don't think it's a draconian step to shut down the border. I think what's draconian is for the citizens of the United States to have to show 50 million forms of ID anytime we want to get something done. And these people who can break the law and come into the country illegally and not have to show any ID because they don't have any documents. I think that's draconian. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that that's draconian. You know what I'm saying? And in addition, this is all being done for a majority of people that are not seeking legit asylum. This is being done for people who are seeking economic asylum. It's ridiculous.
Of admission and exit. And we don't have that right now at 10,000 migrants per day.
Maria, as you know, President Biden, he sent a clear message to Democrats. They need to work with Republicans, deliver on this issue, and frankly, make concessions. Here's what he said recently.
I am willing to make significant compromises on the border. We need to fix the broken border system. It is broken. Compromise is how democracy works. And I'm ready and offered compromise already. I proposed a comprehensive immigration reform on day one. We need Congress to act.
It appears he's willing to make compromises. Yeah. Well, certainly more security, raise the credible fear standard for asylum seekers. The issue seems to be with the parole power for the president, allowing, in effect, the president to make decisions about who gets treatment through the asylum process. To both of you, what concession is key here?
So you heard the president. He is willing to make concessions. He's always been willing to make concessions.
Now, here's my question to you guys. What concessions are Joe Biden willing to make? What are the concessions that he's supposedly willing to make?
So much so that some of his allies are mad at him for making too many concessions. But they have to draw the line at the extremism that Republicans are asking for, because it is not a serious proposal what they want. And that
See, this lady is, they're talking about how people just keep making this a political issue. This lady right here keeps harping on the political stuff because she has a beef with Republicans instead of trying to fix the actual issue. And the actual issue is that the border is out of control. It hasn't been maintained. And the fact that it hasn't been maintained and the fact that it hasn't been addressed are being exploited by these massive amounts of people coming in through the southern border and Border Patrol not even being able to handle it. But pay attention to what she keeps focusing on.
goes to what Charlie was saying. I don't think Republicans want a deal. The majority of them are not working towards a deal, which is what we want. America deserves better. The border communities as well as the cities deserve better. And the president was willing to give that money, and Republicans have said no.
Charlie, what's a reasonable big concession for Republicans that demand here at this time?
A big concession for Republicans? I suspect the biggest concession they can make right now is, to get rid of some of the extreme rhetoric on just shutting down the border. They need to move away from that and get serious about negotiating more barriers, more beds, more immigration judges, technology, as Maria said, drones, and of course, they need the Democrats though to move on asylum in a big way, and also to help with this interior enforcement problem. That is something that really bothers many Republicans. I was on the Homeland Security Committee for years, dealing with these issues. Original co-sponsor of the Secure Fence Act. So we got to do. They all have to bend here, and then, as Maria says, negotiate in good faith. Because some of these members on the Republican side in the House aren't going to vote for a deal that includes Ukraine funding, regardless of what's in the border package.
All right, so there's that. So off topic, right? How many people remember the rapper G-Dep? If you guys remember the rapper G-Dep, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't, give me a thumbs down. Remember, he was with Bad Boy. He made some songs with P. Diddy and Black Robb. I didn't know that he had turned himself in for a cold case murder. How many people were aware of that? He did that. He turned himself in for a cold case murder. And apparently, he was just recently granted clemency by Governor Kathy Hochul. I thought that was interesting. I had no idea that any of that was going on, but apparently it was. You know what I'm saying? Apparently it was. I had no clue. I was like, what?
Border, and it has been a crisis of historic proportions over the last week. This is what we know. Many people, of course, are preparing for this holiday weekend. Border Patrol agents are still working to get thousands of migrants processed down there at the southern border. International railways into Eagle Pass, Texas, are open yet again since this afternoon. Remember, CBP had said that they were going to temporarily and indefinitely close them earlier this week. Let's go down now to the southern border there in Eagle Pass, Texas. Fox News multimedia reporter Bowen Kedrovich standing by with the latest. Bowen, good to see you. So you're down there at the southern border. You're seeing it up close, personal, firsthand. What are you seeing?
Hi, Andrew. Yes, well, I have seen some rail cars start to move down the railway from Mexico over to Eagle Pass, but they are still processing vehicles on one of the two international bridges here. And that is because the agents from the closed bridge have to come and help with the migrants. And now you can still see some of the migrants here behind me, but this is a very different scene, what we are seeing today compared to the last couple of days around this time. The crowd down here has really started to thin out, but experts warn that these closed entryways into Eagle Pass will cripple the city's economy.
Now, I'm glad that I don't live in Eagle Pass, Texas. Think about this. This is the picture that I was trying to paint for people. Eagles Pass, Texas is smaller than New York or Chicago, but they deal with more migrants just barreling through that city than New York and Chicago, even with the planes and the buses and people being flown and sent out. Could you imagine what that's doing to that city? Could you imagine? Imagine that.
Bridge crossings are important for this particular community because, and any border community, because it generates revenue, it generates toll revenue. The bridge locally is owned by the city of Eagle Pass, and bridge tolls are down.
Some drivers coming from Mexico to Eagle Pass can spend over 10 hours in traffic. Others are choosing to walk the bridge to save time. One grocery store owner tells me the majority of his customers come from Mexico. He says before the holidays, business was booming, and now the store feels empty.
I was born and raised here in Eagle Pass. I lived here all my life, and we have never seen anything like this. We have always...
Facts. I agree. Shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. I agree 100%, bro. Lloyd Sky 9 says, yeah, this is disgusting of our leadership in this country. They are the worst kind of filth. Facts. Literally what we're watching is the American people just be sold out by the government that's in place right now. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're watching, which is ridiculous. Which means also that people have to be aware of that, and people have to start making some choices. People have to start making some decisions about how to move forward, how to manage their money, how to deal with certain things that we may encounter in the future. I would have a big problem with it if somebody who I know illegally crossed the border weren't required to show any kind of ID. And then when I go somewhere, it's, oh, hold on, stop. You got to show your ID and I need to see your papers. And is that, nah, what? I'm a tax-paying citizen. Generations of my family, my entire generations of my family have been here forever. You know what I'm saying? The family that I come from has paid tons of money into the United States tax system. You know what I'm saying? And I got to agree with Tilo. This government has decided that the laws don't matter. Facts. And when the laws do not work in favor of this government then utilizes their political and judicial power to change the law to make whatever illegal operation that it is that they want to do legal. We've seen that happen multiple times.
Had a tremendous amount of traffic in Eagle Pass and from Piedras Negras come into the downtown area, but now the downtown area looks like a ghost town.
Yesterday, CBP had nearly 11,000 migrant encounters. DPS tells me they expect it to be busier during the holidays. Andrew?
You know, Bowen, that's so interesting. I was speaking with some of these congressmen earlier this week there. Henry Cuellar, the Democrat from Texas, about these closures of these rail passages there. And he told me kind of what that local business owner told you, that this crisis is now impacting not only the general national economy, but local economies down there in Eagle Pass as well. It's a good thing that's now open, right?
Well, the international bridge number 1 is closed from Mexico over to Eagle Pass. There is one lane open on the international bridge too, but those wait times are so long. The store owner, the grocery store owner, Benny Rodriguez, he tells me that these people are waiting so long in line that they don't want to come and shop at his store because of the wait time. So it's still an issue right now with these wait times and with the trade and commerce going from city to city there.
Yeah, Bowen, just lastly.
So these effects that the migrant crisis are having on local business, it's only a matter of time until all of these areas that are getting these influxes of migrants, there's that kind of effect on all of the businesses. Anywhere where these issues are shutting things down, the businesses are going to be affected. Now, if the businesses continue to be affected, the businesses are going to eventually go out of business. And if the businesses eventually go out of business, then the next question that you have to ask is, how is the economy going to sustain itself? What's going to end up happening, and you guys are going to start seeing this, especially as the numbers start to get larger, is that there's going to be a ripple effect. There's going to be like a domino effect of certain institutions and certain systems literally just breaking, and then it's going to cause a cascading effect of subsequent things to break and not work. And eventually, if that's not taken care of, if that chain reaction isn't dealt with, that's going to start a systemic, long-standing, lasting collapse. We don't know if it'll be financial. We don't know if it'll be governmental. We don't know if it'll be with the healthcare system, but that's what's going to occur if this is not taken care of.
Presumably you might be there through the week, and I'm not sure about that. If so, what are you looking for next?
What I'm looking for next, I want to get more in touch with the operations that DPS and CBP are having. What I heard from DPS is that they told me that the morale right now is low, that they are not feeling the support from the federal government at this moment. So I would really like to try and get more in tune.
So now here, okay, so I need you guys in the comment section to list for me all of the people who feel that they're not getting support for this crisis from the federal government. We got Eric Adams. We got Katie Hobbs in Arizona. Now we got Border Patrol saying it. The state of Texas has been saying it. Governor Abbott has been saying it. There's a growing list of people who are saying the federal government is not doing their job. What has the federal government done in response to any of those criticisms? Nothing. Nothing. The only thing that has been changing when it comes to this border crisis, because, you know, we do these undocumented bros and undocumented videos several times a week. We talk about this stuff, right? The only thing that's changing is that the situation is getting worse and that there's more migrants coming. When it comes to things put in place to try to correct this situation or to try to stop it or to try to slow it down, the only people that are taking those kind of steps is Governor Abbott and that woman Katie Hobbs in Arizona. And that's it. No one is really being proactive about this. Would you guys agree? And I got to agree with Ricky. Shout out to Ricky. Ricky says Jim Crow Joe has an open door policy at the border and it shall only get worse. Facts. If you guys agree with Ricky, go ahead and throw some thumbs up in the comment section. If you disagree, give me a thumbs down and let us know why you disagree.
Of their operations this weekend is what I'll be looking for.
All right, Bowen Dickovich there down for us live in Eagle Pass, Texas. Bowen, thanks so much. Good to see you.
You bet.
All right. In the meantime here, we do want to continue with some of our coverage of the southern border. I want to put up some of these tweets here that we've compiled for you. Take a look at this one from Alden Cabello. He's a citizen journalist with this video there. He says, Eagle Pass, Texas. The railway is now open, perhaps a sign that things are calming down after train and deportation operations kicked off yesterday. I have the statement in as well from CBP on those operational changes and resumption of rail operations. But first, there, Tony Gonzalez, who represents one of these border districts there in Congress. He's a Republican. He says this: today, cross-border rail operations in Eagle Pass and El Paso will resume. The closure of these two crossings had a detrimental economic impact that disrupted critical trade and commerce there. And so you can see.
So now what Representative Tony Gonzalez is saying here is exactly what I was saying. Now, the thing is that when the migrant crisis starts to get to the same levels that it is in these Texas cities throughout the entire United States, these things are going to kick off. These are going to kick off a chain reaction of economic issues. And then once that chain reaction of economic issues gets kicked off, then what happens?
Many of these lawmakers who represent these areas are somewhat relieved this is now open. Even Henry Cuellar, the Democrat from Texas, who we spoke with earlier this week, he says this: beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time today, U.S. Customs and Border Protection there will resume rail operations at bridges in Eagle Pass and El Paso. This is a welcome development, and I'm pleased to see that international trade between the U.S. and Mexico will continue to flow. Thank you to my colleagues, Tony Gonzalez, Veronica Escobar, and all the railroad stakeholders for your advocacy to keep our trains moving. He goes on to say, we need to have order and control at our borders, and we need to prioritize the flow of legitimate trade and travel through our ports to keep our economies strong. He says that requires us to have a multi-layered strategy that includes ensuring that our frontline officers and agents have the resources they urgently need to respond to the humanitarian crisis we are witnessing at the border, that we take steps to unclog our backlogged immigration system, and that our partners in Mexico and Central America do their part to address the significant rise in irregular migration throughout the region. When you're talking as well about irregular migration, we just got the...
Now, let me ask you guys this, because that's a new term, right? Irregular migration. That's a term that we don't really hear. As long as we've been talking about this, we've never really heard anything be referred to as quote unquote irregular migration. And I think that that's an interesting term to use. So I'm going to ask you guys, when they say irregular migration, what do they mean by quote unquote irregular migration? And shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 37 likes and we got 27 people watching. We're getting close to that 40. If everybody could take a moment and bang on that like button and get us to 50, that would be great.
The numbers in today from CBP for the month of November, and they are quite staggering. Griff Jenkins tweeting out kind of this graph showing the rise in illegal crossings throughout the course of the last several years, but also now these new numbers for the month of November, saying CBP releases November encounters on a Friday dump before Christmas, which is what we call.
Yeah, I got to agree 100%. I would say illegal, right? Illegal would be one of the things that I would say. And then I would also say they're from uncharacteristic places of origin. So I would say illegal border crossings, illegal border encounters, and unorthodox border encounters with countries of unpredictable origin. You know what I'm saying?
News that comes out on a late Friday night, a Friday news dump. He says 242,418 encounters at the southern border. It's the highest November on record, and it's the third highest month ever. Griff goes on to say there were 17 individuals hit there with TSDS and the FBI's terror watch list, bringing the total for fiscal year 2024 to 30 individuals apprehended on the FBI's terror watch list there. So this is staggering. We also got new details as well from CBP saying since December 1st, there have been more than 214,000 migrant encounters at the southern border. Since the new fiscal year began, October the 1st, there have been more than 698,000 migrant encounters at the southern border. In the last 24 hours, there have been 11,000 migrant encounters at the southern border. So we'll just have to track and see once December is over, whether or not December surpasses the record month that November was, the third highest month ever recorded for illegal migrant encounters there at the southern border as well. So I want to make sure we got all of that in. I know it's a lot of data there to process, but it still spells out how much the border crisis is impacting so many facets there of American life. Live now look there at the White House as well. President Biden spoke on the phone earlier this week with the president of Mexico, Manuel Lopez Obrador there about these issues. He also, President Biden, got a letter from Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson, urging.
Now, as you guys know, the president of Mexico is not on board or is not very happy with the initiatives that Governor Greg Abbott is taking. He's not very happy with that stuff. I don't think that he plans on cooperating either. Now, if you ask me, it's a bad look. The president of the United States should never be more in alliance with the president of a foreign country than he is with governors in his own nation. That is an extremely bad look. That's an extremely bad look.
The president to take executive action to stem some of these illegal migrant flows happening down there at the southern border. Remember, it's not only happening in Texas, it's also happening.
That's a great question. Shout out to Ricky. Ricky says, where in the hell did we get all these Latino politicians that are advocating for these migrants? My answer to that would be the same place where the migrants came from. And those Latino politicians who are advocating for those migrants probably have parents that came in the same way that the migrants are coming in. So they're sympathetic to that. And because of the way that the United States system is to integrate a lot of these people into American society, now these people have been integrated. And this is how you see all of these waves of people that come through the United States significantly change the political landscape. Just imagine all those numbers that we talked about earlier. Imagine 10, 15 years into the future, the amount of people that there's going to be here in the United States. All of those people are going to be advocating for that kind of open border, illegal, migration, because there'll be so many of them that's their story and they can all relate behind that. You know what I'm saying? And then what happens? They're going to have a lot of numbers. They're going to be able to use those numbers to politically bring that to life, which is why things like this have to be looked at, because you can't expect a large influx of people from outside of the United States to come into the country and not have their culture that they're coming with influence what's already going on here. Look at what happened in 1776. All those Europeans came to the United States and destroyed it. We're still living in the remnants of that. And those people know that. They know what they did to this country when they first came in. So now they fear other people coming to the country doing the same thing that they did to establish this country. Because they know that once all those people come in, those people are going to establish a country that's completely different than the one that they're living in now. The same way the Europeans that came here destroyed the United States and established a country that was completely different than what the indigenous people had. Because whether these people like to talk about it or not, that happened.
Here in Arizona, Bill Melugin, based there for the moment down in Lukeville, Arizona, in the Tucson, Arizona sector, saying Border Patrol sector there reports apprehending 19,400 illegal immigrants in a single week. It's the high
facts, super facts. Shout out to Lloyd Scott 9. Lloyd Scott 9 says those immigrants were the Al Capones and the Godfathers. Facts. Facts. As a matter of fact, the criminal element was so based in immigration that to be a made man, you have to be able to trace your bloodline not back to New York City, not back to Chicago, but back to freaking Sicily, back to a foreign country. But that's not something that they talk about. But it's true. Australia and New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken, both of those were penal colonies.
Highest weekly total ever recorded for the sector, which includes Lukeville. The weekly record has now been broken 3 weeks in a row. It's just one of 9 sectors. And so you remember the port of entry there in Lukeville, Arizona, remains closed. All right, I'm Andrew Kraft here, and you can just feel the sense. We've been showing you some of these live pictures there in Eagle Pass, also some of these videos there in Lukeville, where Bill Melugin is.
Now they have a live video breakdown that Forbes posted, and it's one of those 4K videos. It doesn't really have much talking in it, but it shows footage of what's going on and what it looks like on the ground at the southern border. And I think that we will probably show that either toward the end of this stream or at some point tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I gotta agree. Disgusting how these people exiled their criminals to go genocide. And then once the criminals went and created something that was profitable, then they started working with those criminals that they had locked up.
Of the solitary single file line of some of these illegal migrants who are waiting to cross illegally, be transported, be processed. You sympathize with their plight. Of course, lawmakers still trying to.
What is the plight? Economic migration. There's people in the United States that need to economically migrate to another state because their economies are bad. Mississippi, the entire Midwest. Are you serious? These are economic issues as well. What about the economic issues here in the United States?
To figure out how to reform the immigration system. Will it be targeted and pinpointed, or will it be more comprehensive as well? Unfortunately, those negotiations, yes, they're still ongoing, but any action is going to get kicked into the new year. Live Now Look there on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers have a very busy January ahead of them.
All right, so now as you can see, this playlist right here, Texas flies planes of migrants to Chicago. Hopefully, if we can get through some of this stuff, we'll be talking about that. If not, that'll probably be what we talk about tomorrow. But now I saw this video right here, and this is a video from CNN. And this video was interesting because the news anchor actually interviewed everybody's favorite former politician. Now, I'm going to ask y'all this question. Who is everybody's favorite politician? Everybody's former favorite politician. I'm going to let y'all guess. And then when y'all see it, y'all going to be cracking up. You know what I'm saying? Let's check this out.
Tonight, Texas is being sued for its new law allowing police to arrest and deport suspected migrants. The suit says that it preempts federal law and is therefore unconstitutional. Meantime, more than 12,000 migrants were apprehended on the U.S. southern border in just the last 24 hours. That is a daily record near Eagle Pass, Texas. CNN's Rosa Flores is there.
Abby, what you see behind me are thousands of migrants who are waiting to be transported for immigration processing. Look over my shoulder. You'll see men, women, children. And what you're looking at right now is a federal issue. It's up to the federal government to apprehend these individuals, process them, and hold them. But Governor Greg Abbott...
Okay, so now here's the thing. It's a federal issue, right? But now here's the question, though. Once these people get into Texas, does that make it a state issue? Shout out to Patricia Slade. What's good with it, Patricia B1? And shout out to True Essence 87. What's good with it? See, these are all of the questions that we got to tackle. These are all of the questions that we got to ask. And see, the thing is that when it comes to the news and when it comes to the media, they're not asking these questions and they're not having people on who are asking these questions. What they're doing is just talking about it based on a script because they don't want people addressing these questions, because the answers to these things are very easy to come to the conclusions of. None of this stuff is rocket science. This is logistics. It's not rocket science. You know what I'm saying? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 32 people watching and we got 38 likes. We're almost at 40. If everybody could take a moment, smash the like button. If you've already smashed the like button, share the stream to your social media. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the bell. That'll get us to our 40 likes, and then we can start working on that 50.
Abbott just signed SB 4. This creates a new state crime for illegal entry into the country, which means what you're looking at could be a state issue come March of 2024. Now, the ACLU has already filed a lawsuit. So this
why would this not be a state issue? Let me ask you guys this. We're looking at this picture right here. Is Texas directly affected by what's going on in this picture? If Texas is indeed directly affected by what's going on in this picture, give me a thumbs up. If they're not, then give me a thumbs down. Is anywhere now, if Texas was not flying these people to everywhere else in the United States, would anywhere else in the United States be affected by this, or is this solely an issue that Texas and Arizona and California and other states on the border have to deal with? Let me know.
which means what you're looking at could be a state issue come March of 2024. Now, the ACLU has already filed a lawsuit, so this is caught in a legal battle. Governor Abbott has already said that he plans to take this legal battle all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, but it's local communities who are very concerned because what you're looking at could end up in the hands of counties and cities who don't have funds. I've talked to individuals all along the border, including the sheriff from Maverick County where I am, and he says that his deputies are not trained in immigration law and that he doesn't have space for them in their jails. Abby?
Rosa Flores, thank you for that. And for more on this, I want to bring in former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who dealt with a surge of migrants in her city as mayor. Mayor Lightfoot.
There you go. That your girl Lori Lightfoot. Everybody kept saying Beetlejuice, 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 and she finally came out. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Now, today, as Rosa was just saying, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has signed that bill that makes entering the state of Texas illegally a state crime. Is this, in your view, a reasonable way for him to try to curb what we are seeing there on the screen, thousands of migrants pouring in from the southern border?
Well, when you talk about Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature, it's hard to use the word reasonable about anything that they're doing. I know from my own experience, receiving no notice in buses, just dumping migrants who were entered into the country legally. And I think that's something that people don't understand. The migrants that are coming to our city are in this country legally. Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature.
That's not true. So see, as you guys can see, Lori Lightfoot is still being a Democrat shill when it comes to this issue. How is it that a lot of these people haven't even been processed? So how are they in the country legally? A lot of these people haven't even been processed. So how are they in the country legally? So as you guys can see, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed with Lori Lightfoot except for the fact that she's out of a job. Nothing's changed.
For more on this, I want to bring in former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who dealt with a surge of migrants in her city as mayor. Mayor Lightfoot, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Now, today, as Rosa was just saying, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has signed that bill that makes entering the state of Texas illegally a state crime. Is this, in your view, a reasonable way for him to try to curb what we are seeing there on the screen, thousands of migrants pouring in from the southern border?
Well, when you talk about Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature, it's hard to use the word reasonable about anything that they're doing.
Yeah.
I know from my own experience.
I gotta agree, and it's really infuriating, Lloyd Sky 9. I agree with you, bro. And we're gonna do it like this. These white political system selected black politicians have no shame or backbone. If you guys agree with Lloyd Sky 9, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. I agree 100%. They don't have no backbone. It's amazing to me the way that Lori Lightfoot was railroaded by her own party, and she has still sit up here and say this nonsense and still carry these narratives. Brandon Johnson is to this day, you know what I'm saying, still throwing Lori Lightfoot under the bus. And she's still being faithful to the Democratic Party. And I agree, there's going to be a lot of resistance with Trump. Ricky says Trump will not be allowed to deport enough of these migrants or close the borders. Yeah, I agree. Now, see, I think that the Senate and the House of Representatives is going to need to significantly change composition. And I think if the Senate and the House of Representatives was able to significantly change composition, that would give Trump a little bit more flexibility with a conservative Supreme Court to be able to more quickly and more efficiently get some things in place. But I don't think that he's going to be able to deport enough of these migrants to make a big difference. There's going to be some resistance. And then the same way that the Republican states now are giving resistance to a lot of the sanctuary city stuff and migrant stuff, I think that that's going to happen on the Democrat side if Trump is in office. So it's just going to be a hot mess.
Receiving no notice in buses, just dumping migrants who were entered into the country legally. And I think that's something that people don't understand. The migrants that are coming to our city are in this country legally. Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature.
I'm not mad at this, and I'm not mad at this at all. Facts. Facts on facts on facts on facts. Throw some flames in the chat for Rob from Denver. Rob from Denver says black voters should make ending birthright citizenship a top political priority as a strategic response to end affirmative the end of affirmative action. Facts for multiple reasons. For the first reason, that people can't just take punches at us and they don't get punched back. That's the first reason that should be done, because even though we don't care about affirmative action, we understand that the reason why Asian people took aim at affirmative action was to try to throw shots at us. So we're gonna throw shots back at y'all. Like Do or Die said to Bone Thugs and Harmony. Motherfucker bust at me, you better believe I'm busting back. That's people, we need to bust back. You know what I'm saying? Second, we need to make sure that when it comes to ending the birthright citizenship, that we're talking specifically about the birthright of illegal migrants and these dreamers. They don't deserve to have birthright. Your parents came in illegally. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a woman has a child in jail because she's broken the law, that child is going to go to the foster care system, the social services system, because the parent is in jail because they've done something wrong. The child doesn't automatically get the benefits of that family because that family are criminals, or the mother is a criminal if she's a single mom. You know what I'm saying? So you shouldn't just get rewarded because of a criminal act, which is ironic because the people that started the United States generations and generations are still benefiting from the rewards of their ancestors' criminal acts. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just an interesting dynamic to look at.
Have decided that they want to manufacture a humanitarian crisis in cities like Chicago and New York and Washington, D.C., Denver, L.A., Phoenix, and other cities. This latest effort by Greg Abbott to...
Now, here's my question. Why is it never, when these people talk about what's going on, why is it never, when they talk about Texas, it's never discussed in terms of it being a humanitarian crisis in Texas? Because I'm pretty sure it's a humanitarian crisis in Texas. If we're going to call what's going on anywhere else in the country a humanitarian crisis, we can't not call it a humanitarian crisis in Texas. We can't not do that. Would you guys agree? It's significantly worse in Texas than it is in these other places, which is the reason why Texas is sending these people all over the place. But what's interesting about it is that they're calling this a created humanitarian crisis, but they're only calling it a created humanitarian crisis because now they have to deal with it. See, when it's just Texas taking all the burden, they didn't have to deal with it. So they could just ignore it. You know what I'm saying? They could just act like wasn't nothing going on. They could just sit there and say, we'll take all these people in. We'll take all these people in, while you don't run the risk of being overrun with all these people that you say you're going to take in. Now that that risk is at your doorstep, now it's a manufactured humanitarian crisis. See, Lori Lightfoot's not telling the truth.
Gain relevance on a national level and impose his will on what is clearly the domain, an exclusive domain of the federal government. I don't think that it will stand, but the cynicism that he's exhibiting by saying, I'm going to take this all the way to my friends who are the conservative activist Supreme Court shows a level of cynicism that is even beneath someone like him. I'm hoping, frankly, the DOJ will step in and join the ACLU in challenging this new law.
Just putting aside for a second what needs to be worked out in terms of the legality of this, right? Whether the state of Texas has the authority to do this. As a governor, he is dealing with actually orders of magnitude more than what cities like yours, Chicago, dealt with when you were mayor and is dealing with now. Under those circumstances, do you understand why, leaders in Texas, whether you're the mayor of a border town or the governor, feels a sense of desperation by these numbers that they're seeing?
Yeah, but what he's exhibiting is not a...
Hey, that's a good question that she just asked, because she just asked a question that I've been asking. So now I wonder how Lori Lightfoot is going to respond to that, because that's real. Those are all legit points and legit questions that this news anchor just asked Lori Lightfoot. So what I want to know from you guys is, how do y'all think that Lori Lightfoot is going to respond? What do y'all think she's going to say? Let's see.
Chicago dealt with when you were mayor and is dealing with now. Under those circumstances, do you understand why, leaders in Texas, whether you're the mayor of a border town or the governor, feels a sense of desperation by these numbers that they're seeing?
Yeah, but what he's exhibiting is not a sense of desperation. Look, there's no question whatsoever that there is a immigration crisis that comes to our borders every single day. I've spoken with border mayors about the challenges that they have faced, and we've had teams that have gone down to the border to understand the magnitude of the challenge firsthand. But you don't solve that problem, number one, by usurping the authority of the federal government, and you certainly don't solve that problem by losing sight of the humanity of these migrants, many of whom are sick and injured, need medical care.
Now we got to ask this question. Like none of Lori Lightfoot's not answering the question. The question was, does she understand the magnitude of the migrant crisis in Texas? And I agree, Lloyd. She is vile, sitting up there and upholding the BS. Facts. But see, this is the reason. This is why she's where she's at right now. This is why she's at where she's at. You guys are looking at it right here.
Tricked into getting on buses with a one-way ticket free option only to cities like Chicago. That is not the way you solve this problem. I think if Governor Abbott and the Texas legislature really wanted to do something to address this issue, they would work collaboratively with the federal government, and they work collaboratively with cities and states like Illinois, like Chicago. But that's not what this is about. This is about creating a humanitarian crisis, making a political statement and not a public policy statement to try to get to solutions that work to the benefit of everyone involved.
I want to ask you about something that we're also seeing playing out on the national level. Former President Trump doubling down on this anti-immigrant rhetoric that, as we pointed out and others have, really has its origins in pretty authoritarian places. He today suggested that mass deportations of students who don't speak English should happen. Listen to what he said.
They go into classes, they don't speak English, nobody knows what to do. Well, we don't have any people that even understand or know those languages, they can't teach them. They're all over the place. We have these classrooms in schools which are loaded up with people that don't speak a word of English, and the schools are there and they have no idea what to do about it. It's a very sick situation.
Your reaction?
Well, first of all, there's very little truth to what he just said.
Oh man, shout out to you, Lo, man. What's good with it, bro? Oh man, what y'all think about what Trump just said? What do y'all think about that?
The schools are there and they have no idea what to do about it. It's a very sick situation.
Your reaction?
Wow, man.
Well, first of all, there's very little truth to what he just said. And let's, again, not forget, we're talking about human beings, and specifically, we're talking about children. And schools all over the country for decades now have had English classes and taught in different languages. So schools know how to address these issues and challenges because they've been doing it and doing it well for decades now. But fundamentally, demonizing the other. You know, look, as a Black woman whose parents grew up in the segregated South.
Here we go. 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 What y'all think about what she about to say? This right here, this is PBC, prime PBC. This is pro-Black cooning. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. When I be talking about how people be pro-Black cooning, this is what I'm talking about right here. Let me just get everybody emotionally involved. What the hell do you growing up as a Black woman in the South got to do with you being able to make correct decisions about immigration? Hashtag PBC, pro-Black coon. We'll start calling these people koofy coons. You know what I'm saying?
Family demonizing the other. You know, look, as a Black woman whose parents grew up in the segregated South and how we were demonized simply by the color of our skin, I am very, very sensitive and aware of the kind of loaded.
The migrants finna demonize you because of the color of your skin. And you getting the migrants from some of the most anti-Black places in the world. PBC sounds like a channel. It's a bunch of PBCs that do got channels. It's a bunch of PBCs that do got channels. Damn. Goodness gracious, man.
Language that is intended to blow a dog whistle, to generate hate and division. And that's what the former president does on a regular basis. He did it in 2015 when he had his announcement. He did it throughout his presidency. He's doing it now because he believes that that stirs some kind of base in his support. But what it does, frankly, is rings as un-American. It's clearly grounded in horrible racist rhetoric.
Or racism is as American as apple pie. Racism is American. Racism is American culture. Which is why your family was discriminated against. Talk about being situationally unaware.
That has been tied to some of the worst authoritarian dictators and human rights abusers that our world has ever known. We don't need that here. It doesn't solve any problems. And what it does is it pushes us further apart instead of bringing us together at a time when, as a country and our democracy.
So now the thing that's interesting is that with all of this, if it's not blatantly obvious what group of people controls the Democrats and who the Democrats are actually a proxy for, it should be. It should be.
Needs it most. I completely abhor that rhetoric and condemn him for using that kind of loaded, awful language.
I condemn. I condemn. Who condemns all the damn time? Yeah, we know about that condemnation. You know what I'm saying? That condemnation over there dropping bombs right now, which is the only reason why this immigration situation is getting looked at, because they want more money for more bombs. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. So, ladies and gentlemen, players and pimps, I appreciate each and every one of you all for checking us out. We're going to be live again tomorrow, same time. So make sure that you guys are locked in and tuned in to The Surge Part 2. And as always, ladies and gentlemen,